Big business. The king of fruits.
It's a 300-year-old durian tree on your island. The famous 300-year-old durian.
I don't think so.
I'll send you the YouTube.
I can almost assure you it's not. There's only a couple of locals who have durian farms on the island, although they're very large durian farms, but they're incredibly well hidden. You can live on this island your entire life and never know they were there, but they're very large. Anywho, welcome back to Tech News Around the World, and let's jump into it. It's people are sharing, as usual, ever since we met 5 short hours ago. There has been a whole bunch of interesting tweets. My goodness. And Cal sent in a few. Everyone sent in a few. We will jump into those in a minute. JT's in the audience. Welcome back, JT. Let's get Ed up here. And if you have something to share, you can share it here on stage if you have a decent bio. And or you can share it by tweeting it from your Twitter account and just adding our Twitter account, kind of tagging your tweet with our Twitter account so that we see it in our notifications, where we can makes it very easy for us to retweet it. So we'll start off with Cheryl's interesting retweets that I just retweeted. That's Volkswagen's Tesla race is hitting the wrong gear in China. No pun intended, huh? What the clever journalism there in that headline. Hitting the wrong gear in China. The 130 billion euro German car maker has been hit by low Chinese sales of its flagship EV. That bodes ill for boss Herbert Diess's aim at challenging Elon Musk's dominance. Keep that in mind, because we will have other Volkswagen Tesla headlines in just a short bit. But interesting to see that Tesla is kicking Volkswagen's ass in China. But keep that in mind. And then somebody named Anu, I don't know, Anu Pathak, I don't know if you're in the audience. No doubt you listen to Tech News Around the World, because she's been sending in a bunch of really good tweets. One about Satoshi Nakamoto being a mysterious inventor behind Bitcoin, and who's yet to be identified. Still remains.
Have I?
And if Nakamoto does exist, it is believed they have 1 million Bitcoins, and that 1 million Bitcoins currently is worth about 30 billion, although a couple weeks ago it was worth about 60 billion, making Satoshi one of the wealthiest people on the planet. Very interesting. And if it goes up to past 100 million, it's very conceivable Satoshi will be the wealthiest person on the planet. And that would be quite interesting, that the wealthiest person is totally anonymous. And that was from The Economist, that you can see from the Twitter account. And the reason that I imagine that came up was because of Lex Friedman did an interview recently with the brains behind, was it Cardano, who has an interesting possible explanation for why they believe they know who Satoshi could be. And that's a really...
Isn't he a regular around here?
Say again?
Isn't Lex a regular around here?
He is in the American, waking hours. He certainly used to be more often than... I haven't seen him in a minute, but I'm not on during...
Yeah, I've seen him recently.
Yeah, when I used to be more American hour based, I used to see him more. And maybe he still is, but I'm being...
I saw him ping him in or something. Okay, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, he might be. But we have different schedules.
Welcome back, Chris.
Yeah, Chris, good to
back.
Hello.
International coalition joins the call to ban surveillance advertising, coming from TechCrunch. And again, thank you to Anu, that indeed there is a bit of an international alliance now to crack down on big tech, which today of all days happens to be the big tech rumble shaping up on Capitol Hill, with now 6 big bills aimed directly at the throats of big tech, y'all. This is going to get very serious.
All the seriousness.
You can hear how serious I am with that sound file. And Apple, Tim Cook, even going out in the New York Times says they have sources that Apple CEO is running around frantically, trying to bring some sense and order to what he feels is a witch hunt. And that's the New York Times, and everyone's covering this big story about big tech's big day of reckoning on Capitol Hill with these big bills aimed at their throats to kind of limit their, future monopolistic tendencies. And even the amount of money that's being spent by the 5 big tech companies, they've spent a total of about $100 million, $100.6 million in the past year in lobbying, making them one of the largest donators to politicians in Washington, D.C. And today's the big day. We will very soon see how this all shakes out. And there's been some very choice tweets flying around the Twitter sphere, both from geeks and from Washington, D.C. Some interesting comments from both sides you had in the past 24 hours. Mark Andreessen, considered one of the apex predators of power on the tech side, one of the largest and most brilliant investors in tech for many years, and the biggest investor in Clubhouse amongst many things. Where
but to sing his praises.
Yeah, he had an interesting metaphor where he says we are effectively machine gunning ourselves in the foot just as we're about to start a marathon with a tech marathon with China.
I've got a thing on this. So Rome, when they needed money to do some expansion or needed to raise an army or something, are like, gosh darn, the coffers are dry. Hey, look, there's a rich person that essentially doesn't seem to be loyal enough. Let's just go ahead and execute and take all their stuff. This is a normal part of how they did their operations. And so whenever you need to go do a giant infrastructure project, you just start, who's don't we like this week? So Biden needs to spend a lot of money on some of his infrastructure projects. Someone's need to foot the bill. You have them going, look, we're the wealthiest companies in the world. Oh, shit. Wait, do we actually need to pay taxes on this? Oh, wait, we're not actually going to pay taxes because we're forming the legal code that's actually really long and complicated. Let's just break up the tech companies. That'll be easier. So it's like, oh, shit, we're supposed to do that. Another thing, Google spent a fortune on Obama, just a fortune on the lobbying there. When they switched over to 45, it never quite took for the, hey, let's lobby for it. So Biden came in with a relatively clean slate of, recent people lobbying. So he basically said, I don't give a shit. Let's know one way or the other. Another factor, the interesting thing on this, I don't want to completely hijack and I'll turn back over the room here. I have been looking through historic trials, and I found out that essentially if you can bribe the regulator who is running the trial, you can make it look really bad, but de facto end up being something like, oh no, Microsoft's getting antitrust, the bad thing, because they distributed a browser. It's like, wow, look what happened to them. Or Ma Bell, oh man, it's terrible. They broke them up, and now they're back together. If you can look very carefully on who is actually doing the prosecuting or who's actually doing the bills for the actual administration, because if they've already been bought out before the thing happens, then they'll do something that looks really bad on the surface and they'll make a big public press about, oh no, this is terrible, it's terrible. Look what happens in practice. That's where it's going to actually matter.
Good points. And on the point of go find the wealthy person who's not playing friendly, Microsoft, wild coincidence, just rose to join the $2 trillion valuation club, which in some sense does put them in a bit of a crosshairs as one of the representatives leading the charge on Capitol Hill today does point out that these big tech companies have not been paying their fair share of taxes. And even goes so far as to say they haven't really been paying taxes at all. And it's high time we got ours, everybody, because we got these infrastructure bills. These infrastructure bills ain't going to pay themselves now, are they? Ironically, very much to Chris's point. So it's going to be an interesting day. And I imagine we might have more headlines before we get out of here. In fact, we already do. This one just broke. Totally related. This one, the title is How the Next Layer of the Internet is Going to be Standardized, and the sort of subtext is that how recent actions against big tech in the US, UK, and EU could inadvertently lead to more fragmentation and ossification of the internet. A big change in how the internet is defined and who defines it is underway. For a while now, it's been apparent that that internet and web standards have stagnated at the top of the stack, and it's a bit geeky. So I'm going to encourage our friend Carl to give it a look over and maybe circle back with us about what he thinks are the juicy bits of this article I just tweeted out. How the next layer of the internet is going to be standardized. A big change in how the internet is defined and who defines it is underway. And it deals with internet protocols, which I will spare you the sleep-inducing nature of talking about internet protocols. So
it's all random and chaotic, and it gets duplicated into a government server. There you go.
So hopefully we can translate that into English for grandma, my grandma, who is now listening in. So yeah, but we did I got a little off track. We were talking about Cheryl's article about the International Coalition joins to call a ban on the quote unquote surveillance advertising. And this coming from TechCrunch, that the Internet Coalition of Consumer Protection, Digital and Civil Rights Organizations, and Data Protection Experts has added its voice to growing calls for a ban on what's been billed as surveillance-based advertising. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You're trying to make it sound mysterious. It's it's I mean that's just is what it is. It's surveillance-based. That's great. They should have been calling it that from the beginning. We call them cookies, by the way. The objection is to form a digital advertising that relies upon massive apparatus of background data processing, which sucks in information about individuals as they browse and use services to create profiles, which are used to determine which ads to serve. Yeah, that's what I've been telling everybody here every day for about a few months now. They are data companies sucking in all kinds of signals. More the better. They are a Borg. In fact, let me do you one better, TechCrunch.
Will this cover finance as well? like credit card purchases?
We talked about this less than 24 hours ago, did we not? Yeah, I think you weren't here when we went precisely onto that point about your shopping history being used as one of these data sources, and how that is being done by some startups. They have to structure the company in very interesting ways to enable that. But I had a friend, Hjalmar Winblatt, did a company called Wrap out of Stockholm that was doing precisely that. And but yeah, it gets. And by the way, so does Klarna. As Johan on stage correctly pointed out, when Johan did a GDPR export of the data that Klarna had collected on him, which he's allowed to get as a European, and export that data. Was it 400 pages of your shopping history, Johan?
Yeah, 400, all from what droves of wine I prefer to everything, high and low. It was.
Whoa, Johan, is there a way I could get a copy of some of that in some public thing? Or I don't know if that's too personal or whatever. I'm just curious about what the types of data. That's amazing. I'm not a European, so I don't have your rights.
Yeah, the thing is that it's my personal information, of course, since it's a GDPR related, but it was everything. What kind of headache
pharmacy
medication have I bought?
All your pharmacy everything. Purchases, yeah.
And every liquor I ever, everything that also where with you go to the mall to get food. What kind of milk do I prefer? Which bread? Which kind of meat do I buy most of? Everything was sorted in order as well. So it was a data warehouse of my shopping history that they already had collected.
Yeah, and in the DMs with Johan yesterday, I confirmed, because I was confused about this. This isn't stuff that Johan has bought using the Klarna thing from the shop.
No, it's just public data.
Yeah. They've sold the data. They've sold their information out there, right?
And the thing is here that Klarna does many things. One of the things they do that people don't know is that they actually have card terminals in the shops as well. So it's not only the thing you do on e-commerce. This is when you go to a physical brick and mortar as well that you get tracked.
I purchased yogurt to remember my grandfather just after he died, and I was like, okay, because I don't eat anything like that, but I just want to remember that as a thing. And then for the next 4 months, I just got basically ads for things for my grandfather. Is like, this is kind of this algorithmic cruelty thing. It's like, I would rather not have this associated with every single purchase of every single YouTube ad of every single. It was really, yeah. I think a lot of the advertising that we have for the surveillance things, like, we don't always take into account the human factor because we're so focused on just making sure that essentially we must get the information to the right person is. If we could just ban the industry, that'd be great.
May I say something, Tyler?
Please.
I think in addition to everyone here, I specifically remembered something that Mike said, and Mike, thanks for that contribution that you gave. I'm probably one of the people that does this most. So I openly say this. I hate Amazon with a vengeance, and a lot of these companies, the big ones like Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, etc. My despise of them is huge, and I voice it on a daily basis where I am, and especially because of one of the businesses that we're in. I speak about the Cloud Act on a daily basis. But if we play the devil's advocate for a second, one of these companies brought the internet to us. A company from them brought the internet to us, or an earlier version of them brought the internet to us. Some of them did major things for us before anyone else did it. Another one did something else for us. A lot of them brought technology where it exists today. We don't recognize any of that. Yet we continue to, including myself, I'm not excluding myself, whine about them on a daily basis. A lot of this has been revealed to us years ago. We continue to do this. And I mean, sometimes I think we're all just a bunch of ungrateful pricks.
I remember was like before the internet, before we had these tech companies in here where we could actually build things and host them and actually run them without having a centralized government and having this sort of centralized control locus where we could actually roll our own tools and not have them broken every single thing and then be basically castigated. Oh, you're not using this standard or that standard. The standards are all owned by Google. I mean, it's a what you say is true in that yes, there's some cool things that added. Look, we can animate things. Look, they've got rounded corners. Look, we have the ability to do X, Y, and Z. But when you compare the actual physical effects to what they've done, it does not justify the scale of giving up what we are giving up in democracy.
Chris, true. Hear me out, though. Hear me out. Right? We talk so much about this, right? And I mean, one comparison, which a lot of people will probably say, no, that's not a fair comparison. Let's talk about the financial industry. A lot of people got up who were against the financial industry and created and talked about blockchain and Bitcoin came about, et cetera, et cetera. We sit about this and we whine morning, day after. Stop using Apple. Stop using Amazon. Yet all of us use Apple. All of us use Amazon. All of us use Microsoft. And yet we continue to whine about this morning, day, afternoon.
Some of us did. Some of us just quit. Some of us just basically rolled our own software, rolled our own hardware. Basically,
really,
quit the industry.
I'm speaking to you on an Apple.
Yeah, here, Faraz, let me add some context here. So the biggest story in the entire tech sphere at this very moment, Wall Street Journal, Apple itself, The Guardian, CNET, 9to5Mac, Apple Insider, The Next Web, The Verge, Bloomberg, Reuters, and many more. The top headline is from the Wall Street Journal. Apple says allowing users like yourself, Faraz, to download apps directly from the app creators onto their phones without going through the App Store would harm customers by damaging privacy and security. So now hold that thought. Apple saying you're not smart enough to download apps directly from app developers like we've done endlessly before the iPhone. On laptops, right? And because Apple wants to have a monopoly and control which apps the apps that you download onto your phone must go through their app store, of course, because they get 30% of all of the purchases that happen through that if it goes through their little walled garden. And if it were to go directly, if you were to download Spotify's app, because Spotify makes an app for the iPhone, and Spotify and Netflix and all these games would love you to download their apps directly from them, and then you would pay them directly. But if you download these apps through the App Store, Apple's App Store, which they force these apps to do, and they force you as a consumer to do, now they get their 30% tax, essentially. And their statement is that essentially, if users were to download directly from the app developers, it would harm customers by damaging privacy and security. And that's kind of the big argument at the moment, because if you are an app developer for a smartphone, if you make a smartphone app, you essentially have two different platforms that you could make it for. And really only two. There's the Apple ecosystem and there's the Android ecosystem. You really don't have any others anymore. And both of those systems have the same lock-in where the only way to get your app to the users of those devices is to go through their gated app stores, where they control who gets visibility in those app stores. And they take 30% of your revenue. Thank you very much. Faraz, do you think that should the app developers, if you make an app tomorrow, some kind of new Uber or whatnot, should you be able to go directly to the app user, or do you think it's fair that the phone require you to go through their app store where they get 30%? And their argument, again, just to repeat for a third time, is that if you were to go directly, it would harm customers by damaging privacy and security. That at the moment is the biggest issue in tech. We already know what you're going to say, Michael. We've had this conversation before.
No,
we already know what Mike's going to say.
He's clearly much more qualified.
I'll do Michael's comment for him. It's that they made the device. It's their thing. If you want to participate in their thing, you got to play by their game. It's their house party.
You have to use Mike's
I'm going to say it for him. It's their party. If you want to party in their house, you got to dance to their playlist. It's their playing the. Yeah,
I said what I said.
What it is.
All right, Michael. All right, how accurate is he? How accurate?
Yeah,
but not only that. Let me just add one other point. My mother yesterday, and pretty much every other day of my entire fucking life, calls me because someone has. She for some reason owes $800 and someone needs her to log into X, Y, or Z company via email. Like, she's always falling for all these damn scams through her email. She's always confused and lost and doesn't know what password she used on which. And I say, Mom, just open your fucking notes and track your passwords, or just get one password, or just do these things. She struggles so hard with technology in general. And I don't want her downloading apps from anything other than the App Store. I don't need her trying to the headache of her trying to do anything on her own that isn't guided by the hand of Apple terrifies the hell out of me. And people like my mother is not the only. She represents the average person who's mother age and who doesn't know anything about technology. And those people do need very high walls protecting them from certain things. They're not nerds like us, where this shit is like 5-year-old shit to us, but for them, this might as well be, speaking 5 languages at once. They don't get it. And so you have to think about those customers that Apple is talking about. They're not talking about us at all.
I get you.
Close.
And
that's very, very
Michael knows I understand his point perfectly. Yeah, and I empathize completely with Michael's point. And I don't think there's a clear winner in this debate, because the other Michael perfectly makes that side of the argument. The other side of the argument is that, do we think that some innovators who might make apps look at that scenario that exists today in smartphones and says to themselves, you know what? Nah, maybe we shouldn't make a smartphone app after all. Maybe we should make some other kind of app for some other kind of devices or platforms, because the business model doesn't work when we have to give up 30% to the Apple or Google to participate in their stores, and we won't get the visibility because there's now endless millions of apps in those stores that are already kind of entrenched by the top 10 lists that are rather difficult to crack, and yada yada yada. It's just, you know what? I'd rather try and build up a direct relationship with my customer directly, and let's do enterprise and build solutions for Starbucks and all their customers or something. Do we start to imagine that there are innovators out there who had bright ideas, but were kind of reluctant out of the way that the App Store models have evolved into today. And let's go to a new headline, because
But
hold on, Tyler.
we are talking about this. We don't need to hold on. We're continuing this point by enriching the conversation with a new headline that is perfectly relevant. We're not moving topics. So check this out.
Thanks.
On this point, and to the related point previously about the surveillance, advertising, or whatever TechCrunch called it. What did they call it, Chris? It was like
surveillance
advertising.
advertising.
So check this out. Here's the headline from CNBC just in the past few hours. Why former Google Ads boss, the boss of the ads at Google, why the former Google Ads boss is building an ad-free search engine. Why do you think he is? You ready for this?
Guess.
This give that kid a star. Sridhar is a CEO of Neva, an ad-free search engine he helped found after running Google's ad business and commerce business. In the interview, he explains how Google's increasing reliance on ads has decreased the quality of its search engine and has real cost for users. Oh wow! Oh how the tables have turned. Which side is right? Yes.
20 years.
I personally do not think of ad-supported free products as being good for consumers, good for our country in the long term, because it's very hard for them hard for them to stay true to what you and I want as users and as customers of these products. Oh boy.
How did he live with himself in all those years?
The wall when the revolution comes.
This is like the opioids maker creating another drug to treat the opioid addiction, right? Something like this.
Nicotine patches for all the addictions we gave all you guys.
Very interesting.
Dude, who is that?
But how interesting is that he, of all people, is able to articulate such an interesting argument against these companies who claim to be protecting the users, and how it would be dangerous to do otherwise, and how he's saying, let's who's really conflicted here is the ones running these ad networks, and it's such an interesting, very nuanced debate, and for yes, the arguments that he's selling nicotine patches is of course valid, but he does bring up some really good points about why Google specifically is conflicted and not necessarily doing what's best for the users. And that this
and nicotine patches don't kill you. The cigarettes do.
Justin.
I would beg to
Tyler, I've
differ.
heard similar arguments.
Unless you patch yourself with sorry,
let Lakeisha finish. You guys.
From people who were some of the early developers with social media platforms. So the guy that invented the like button, for example, right? He, now he's reversed his position and it's like, wow, I had no idea that it would have this.
You're thinking of Chamath,
negative impact. So, yeah. So I mean, I think part of it is probably part of the natural progression, because all of this was new and not that long ago, and so people that thought that they were doing something new and creative and innovative, which was all correct at that time, probably were not looking at the unintended consequences to the degree that they've played out over the past 10, 15 years.
Other thoughts on this issue?
I'd say unintended consequences kind of, I'm just imagining it's contrasting with the A/B testing of 15 years worth of marketing thing. Is like, we totally didn't understand that the thing that we would basically methodically go for and drive our profits, we didn't realize that would actually accomplish the thing we set out to do. I mean, I feel this is really kind of you might have a couple dissenters, but I don't really feel that authenticity with the, we never saw this coming.
Matt,
what's
interesting? Matt, were you on miking? I just want to make sure.
I mean, my main thing is it's one of those. It's repeating Lakeisha's point where it seemed like a good idea at the time.
What's interesting is that I feel like, and this is the part that really bothers me, there is a space that exists in the Android community that should be there. I feel like I want that to exist for people who want to tinker, and I want that to exist for app developers who don't want to be in a store, or who want to create their own store, or who want to do their own, like, I believe all of that stuff should exist. And I don't want it to seem like I just don't think it should exist on iPhones. Like, I don't think everyone should be forcing iPhone to become what everything else already is. I think there should be a choice. Like, I think that I've always thought that way. Like, I specifically have a PC for those days where I feel like tinkering with shit and building my own stuff and digging in and doing whatever I want to it. But I don't do that with my Apple products. That's not why I buy those. I buy those to just work exactly as I expect them to. I buy PC to just let me go in, tear it up, do what I want with it, and make what I want. And I feel like both of those things need to simultaneously exist. And I don't understand this desire to like force the one that isn't what everyone else loves into being what everyone else loves. Like, that's the whole point of the other thing existing, is it not?
But Michael, it
Yeah,
seems like you want to poop in you don't want anyone to poop in your garden, but you're willing to go poop in Windows garden and also Android garden.
Because they asked me to. That's my point. You're telling me that your garden was created for people to come shit in it. So yeah, I'll go shit in it. But this garden was not created for that, so don't
But what
come
if I
shit in
want to
it.
experiment in your garden too?
Shitting
But I
gardens. Here
never
at Tech
told
News
you
Around the
that you
World.
can come shit in my garden. That's the difference. Like, if you build something and say, here, this is for you to come play in it and do what you want, then that's what we're gonna do. But
But
if
you're a
you build
classic
something and
NIMBY.
say that it's not, then respect that rule.
But you're a classic NIMBY.
That's fine.
Can I
Sorry,
Just
Al,
respect
you
the
wanted to
rules.
speak up. Sorry, Al.
at some
You had
point?
your microphone
Yeah.
open.
Where's the rumble music, Tyler?
Can I add to
Go ahead,
this?
Al.
L wants to speak. L wants to speak.
Actually, I didn't realize I was unmuted. I'm in a
Oh,
meeting, so I'm just
so
here for
let
the
me finish off
ride.
my.
I'll let
Okay.
you guys just go at it. I'll
No,
keep
one
my
thing,
thoughts in it.
I hate regulations, but one thing that companies have to be informed of is the the rules of the game, because sometimes these companies, when they get too big, they play outside the field, right? And that's unfair. Like AT&T, for instance, you guys have to go look it up. AT&T, the breakdown of AT&T was not
Legendary.
the reason, right? That the whole internet revolution came about. It was also, there were already other technologies building up. But the problem was that AT&T needed to be reminded that, wait, you are getting big. Just make sure that you don't overwhelm people. I think not that breakdown, but it was just more like the government stepping in and saying, look, we are a referee here. You guys can't go beyond this thing. And I think that's where I think the government still has a role to play. And when lobbying happens, that referee becomes into question. That's all I say. Like, we need to remind people of the games. I mean, the rules of the game.
I don't disagree with that.
Okay.
Thanks,
This
Nimby.
discussion isn't going anywhere because all of us press that button saying I accept
Exactly.
all the time. I accept. I accept. I accept. So
That's
Someone
not
needs
let's
to
just end it
mute.
there.
No, but I didn't accept the fact that you were saying that why are we complaining about all these big companies?
Why are we complaining about them?
We
Doesn't
are
stop
complaining about them because they're not, the governments are governments and not listening
Do
to
you
us,
still
right?
use a cell phone? Do you still use some
Oh,
form
yeah.
of
Praz's
using
point is,
iPhone?
Oh,
once
you
you
know
hit
what?
that
I
button,
cancel my
it
Do
doesn't
you
Amazon
do
matter.
Prime.
AR, VR? And
How
any
many
of the
people in
things
this
that we
room have
talk
given
about
up
in
their
this
cell
room?
phone for
Yeah,
more
but
than 12 months in a row?
Faraz is right.
Like, does
It
anyone
I
else
haven't.
essentially
tried?
boils down to
Sorry.
the fact that people are accepting terms that they have not read.
Exactly.
And if they actually read them, they wouldn't actually accept them. And that would be the game changer. And it fundamentally boils down to precisely that. And now the government's like, actually, this has gotten out of hand. You're doing all this negative stuff that you told the users you
Yep.
were going to do, and they agreed to it, but they didn't. And now we got to fix it
Exactly.
because, yep.
Okay, I actually have a thought now. I have a thought now. So this is how I wanted to say, so it's just like it's a necessarily, I mean, despite the TCs, we all know they're shit, but it's a necessary risk that you take because you want to be a part of the communication thread when we have these phones and stuff. It's the same thing when I'll take the military contract because I was in the US Navy. If you ever read that damn contract, no one in their right mind would ever sign up for the military because you are a piece of property at that point.
Bang
They
on.
tell you right there you're a piece of property, but you do it out of necessity because whatever your situation is in life at that point. So it's the same thing with these right here, but it does not mean that we should not complain about them to ensure that perhaps in the future there'll be improvement. So, I
Contra-
mean, I think it's healthy.
Or
I'm
Contract
totally
government
property
with
implied the ability to
regulations.
negotiate. These aren't things that can be
Yep.
negotiated.
Tyler.
You can't negotiate with the military, but you can negotiate TCs in the future
Simon.
by lobbyists.
Yep.
Tyler, hi, it's Simon in Johannesburg. I feel, listening to this conversation, I feel like saying, you kids don't know what it was like in the old days. Before the internet, who did we have? IBM, AT&T. Okay, we thought those guys were the big monopolies. Everyone thought AT&T was checking up on your, on your phone calls and that kind of thing. So this issue of monopolies, I think it's just changing. The internet has brought in a whole load of new monopolies, and IBM, fortunately, is no longer one of them.
Yeah,
They
we
never
just have
faced a punishment for
options
the
now.
Holocaust, so at least there's a little something there.
Carl.
I mean, we just have options now.
Sorry, I'll go
So
ahead.
L,
Oh no, I was just saying that. No, I was just saying that we just have options now, which I do agree with Michael that it's good to have options because every people go throughout their day with different interactions. It's user experience, so that's how we make our decisions. So whether you join the PC camp, which I have a PC for work, but like Michael, I have the rest of my house is Apple because I need to ensure that my son's computer and my computer, we just have this cohesive network in here where we collaborate effectively. Also, I can monitor his porn use to make sure he's not going
Carl,
anywhere
go ahead.
crazy. So there's
Good
that.
point.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, I was trying to get in earlier. There are options, like these aren't.
Yeah, the point is people view it as a necessary evil because the alternative is too painful. And so they'll sign the dotted line, they'll accept the terms, but it doesn't, I agree with Al, it doesn't mean that you don't see opportunities for change or improvement and or complain about it.
Carl, go ahead.
Exactly.
So I was trying to sort of articulate a few of those. That there are options you can sideload onto both platforms outside of the app stores. This is a little bit easier on Google than it is iOS. But it's still perfectly possible. Google actually is mostly fine with it. And in fact, a lot of apps that don't want to necessarily be in the ecosystem, you can only get from the website. So you go to the website and you can install it from the host's website, completely outside of the store. And then not just that.
You can do that on iPhone too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you have...
There's a whole generation of kids introduced to Fortnite from all this.
Cool.
I think he's
You have things like PWAs, progressive web applications, which are being pushed by both Google and Apple, which are web-based applications that operate completely outside of the stores. And then you've got the payment requests API that's currently sort of being worked on and perfected and whatnot, payment request API that operates over the web for you to be able to make payments. And that will be outside of the 30% App Store charges and whatnot. So there are alternatives here. They're just not as streamlined, and that's kind of the point here. It's like to Michael's point, if you want the safety, the security, the streamline, the greased wheels of the onboarding, then use the store. But the alternatives are there. They're a little bit more work. So yeah.
Flashing back in time, so Stephen Elop essentially goes from Microsoft over to take over Nokia. At the time, they had 70-80% lock on the market for cell phones. There's this new exciting thing. They're going to go from dumb phones, from I think it was the 2G networks, to these new smartphone things. It's going to be the best thing ever. They've got this huge exciting thing they're doing where they're creating this thing called the Migo phone, which is going to have a Linux-based thing, but the shell is going to be made where anyone can program it and have their own applications onto it. This is before apps were a thing. This is before the iPhones, before Android. This is going to change the entire world. Well, Microsoft gets wind of this. They send Elop over, and they absolutely eviscerate the company. They kill that project. With essentially, they start shutting down divisions everywhere. There was inquiry, governments with stuff. It was Finland. It was one of the other ones with stuff. I don't actually remember where Nokia is based out of. One of the Nordic countries, and they were horrified because essentially they just shut the whole thing down, and then afterwards it goes back to Microsoft and gets a promotion. They end up acquiring the assets with stuff and try to do a Windows phone off of it. But it was really crazy because when you look at you can actually look at the original things for the Migo phone, and this ecosystem would have been astounding. This would have been the default normal reference that everything else that we rely on every day now would be referencing as the default. But instead, we went down another pathway. There's a lot of paths not taken in tech. One more I would just throw out there for turning back to the room. The FRAND patents make it patently illegal to create your own phones because essentially all of the things required to talk to the telecommunication networks and the spectrum and licensing required for that is locked down in a way that basically does not allow new participants that are not participants in that patent pool. What that means is that de facto the radio is the most important part of the entire communication stack, and
So
therefore you can't
on
do it
this,
on your hardware.
Chris,
Just to that point about Microsoft shutting down, well, let's say assuming allegedly shutting down Nokia. There was a company 20 years ago called Digital Equipment Corporation that I worked for. They came up
Ooh.
with a new thing called the network computer, which was being pushed very heavily by DEC and Larry Ellison at Oracle, until DEC also tried to get in bed with Microsoft, and Bill Gates basically told DEC no, because the network computer basically competes with Windows. If you want to be have a server that runs Windows Server, you've got to get rid of the network computer.
I
Yep.
actually got a great title for a newspaper right now. Like the most capitalistic people want the socialism for their phone.
it's a good book. I'll buy that book. So on this point, though, about Apple sideloading apps, Carl, that you made, as you were making that point about being able to sideload on iPhones, who was it that just shared the article? I just want to give it Tanya, who I think is on stage, shared this headline that just came out today. Yes, indeed, it came out today. Apple argues against sideloading iPhone apps as regulatory pressure mounts. A new 16-page report sets out the arguments. In a 16-page report, Apple has laid out its arguments against allowing side-loading of iPhone apps, claiming the practice would make its phones less secure and trustworthy for users. The report, which is titled Building a Trusted Ecosystem for Millions of Apps, outlined Apple's existing security processes and how it believes these could change if it were forced by regulators to allow side loading.
And this is why they are pushing for progressive web application support and being active in that space. Because if they can point to PWAs and say, hey, this allows people to sideload, then they don't have to officially support what the government is now trying to push.
Exactly, Carl. Thank you.
Is test
That's all it comes down to. And it's funny because I don't know how old most of you are. I know everyone on this stage is relatively young. But I remember when the iPhone first launched, and I remember all the articles coming out saying this will never work. It's trash. It's so stupid. What a dumb idea. I remember people thrashing the app stores, saying this is just dumb. It's never going to work and all this and that. And I'm talking, these are major publications that were just trashing them for creating such a stupid, quote unquote, stupid phone. Like, it's just not going to sell. It will fail. And it's just really funny to me how every step of the way, Apple, and I don't know if you guys even remember this. There used to be
I
CD-ROMs
remember
on,
when there were no apps on the
yeah,
iPhone.
Amen.
Dr. Francis.
I'm 65. So how old is everyone else in this room? If we're all young.
I'll
But
be 41 tomorrow.
Simon, you're still young, my
I
friend.
think John's got you on that.
80,
My dad is
Simon,
68 and he
80.
plays pickup games every day at the basketball courts. You're still young, Simon.
Yeah,
Got
you're as
Thanks.
young as you
yours.
are.
You're on the
Go
beach.
ahead,
You're
Francine.
young, brother.
I think Dr.
But
Francine wanted to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I'm 80. But the real thing I wanted to say is that Apple has developed or allowed to develop test flight. And test flight is where apps that are just sort of starting out and want to be
Right.
exempt from the App Store go
mm-hmm.
to grow. And I would like to know, is that a progressive web app? What is this? A PWA, or is that something else?
You're talking about
Web
test
app
flight?
is used.
Test
The
flight.
test flight is used to test apps that are in development. I have test flight on my phone at the moment, and
Right.
I get the latest releases of Circom apps before they're actually published, and you need to go through that process so your own development teams can find bugs and perfect features before they release it for approval through the App Store.
Yeah, and that's what Clubhouse did. I was a test flighter on Clubhouse, but I guess my point is that because they're exempt from most of the Apple App Store rules, if they have under 10,000 users, um, it's a replacement for side loading apps.
Or they also limit it to, I
monetarily, they're
think,
not going to really benefit
500
from that.
installs total. Oh, they upped it to
No,
10,000.
10,000. 10,000.
Oh,
I believe
oh
Yeah,
so.
Jesus!
Clubhouse was on
Because
test drive for
I
a long
remember when
time.
test flight came out, and it was initially it was 500 or something. Interesting. Okay.
Nope, it's 10,000.
Just a fun little headline that somebody sent in. This one's cracking me up. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I eat all of, when I go to Subway sandwiches, I often order the tuna. Lab studies determine there's no amplifiable tuna DNA in Subway's tuna sandwiches.
Subway.
What?
Oh,
Yeah.
That's awful.
Oh no.
How can we
I kind
fix
of
that?
want that to be verified though, Tyler, because I feel super duped if that's true.
Oh my God, that's hysterical. But there's something vegans make called to and it's
yeah. Apparently,
made
Subway
with
makes it too. Yeah.
it's made with chickpeas. Maybe that's what's in Subway sandwiches.
Subway, the pioneer in vegan tuna alternatives. They're gonna. By the way, they're raising prices on their non-tuna sandwiches as we speak.
Could you imagine?
Oh,
I could
totally.
honestly see Subway doing that too. Like, how do we spin this? You know what? Let's make it exclusive, and we'll just say that we've been testing this and getting people weaned off of
Next thing you
meat.
know, the
We've been
And this
meatball.
was
I
the
don't want to know
whole
what the
plan.
meatball sandwiches are. Jesus,
This is for climate change.
no.
It's not meat.
Did Dr. Francine buy a cyberpunk?
Oh,
No, I'm serious. I'm not
oh,
joking.
This
Did
is
did
amazing.
CryptoPunk. You mean?
did Dr. Francine what?
By a cyberpunk. Yeah,
Cyberpunk.
CryptoPunk.
Oh, is
Oh
she a
yeah.
cyberpunk?
Yeah, she's into NFT.
Cyberpunk.
Yes, this was one of Strawberry 13's DeFi community, and there are 100 of us.
Is
Nice.
Amazing. Amazing, Dr. Francine.
When you guys say cyberpunk, I just think of the
Oh,
video game Cyberpunk.
I've had it for months. I've had it for I'm
is
DeFi
Michelle? You're on
certified.
stage. You had an interesting point about the previous go around about big tech. Michelle,
Michelle?
Ground control to Major Michelle.
she's multitasking. Yeah. Well, she's been busy.
Been a while.
Facebook
I think
had
Jonathan had the whole
Facebook
playground
had
in
a
the
few
background.
big headlines. She
Sure,
was
we all
very
have our
busy
favorites.
yesterday, in fact, because, and I know this because she was DMing me when we were meeting here yesterday at this time zone. She was pinging me that Mark Zuckerberg was going to go live in a few hours. Her working at Facebook, she knows everything they're up to, and that she was trying to get me into the meeting, which it was their version of Clubhouse, where they were having this quote unquote meeting, and what? No.
Oh, I thought
There
that
was
was
one a
last
couple
week.
weeks ago that we live streamed together, and we're kind of really disappointed with that event because we were expecting the future of social commerce. Remember this, Michael? And then so Michelle was
Oh yeah.
pinging me saying, "Hey, you really got to join this Clubhouse room with Mark Zuckerberg that's starting in an hour." And I couldn't because it's only available to Americans or Americans in America. And yeah, and then she says, "Well, here's a screenshot of it." And on stage is 4 people, and one of the people is an old friend of mine named Shiva. And I thought, what the hell is Shiva doing on stage with Mark Zuckerberg in his event? And the title of their Clubhouse room. Yeah.
Shiva, the goddess
Yes.
of destruction.
In this case, it's Shiva, the head of commerce for Facebook. But
Same
tomatoes. But I said to Michelle, I said, "Hey, Michelle, that's my friend Shiva on stage with Mark Zuckerberg. What's he doing there?" She goes, "Oh yeah, he's our new head of commerce." And that's the entire meeting was all about Facebook's future of social commerce. And they laid it all out. And now there's headlines all about it. So let me share with you what they shared in that, what they call Facebook Live Audio Room, which is, a pixel perfect Clubhouse clone. Facebook expands, and this is the headline that I just tweeted from the Tech News Twitter account. Facebook expands shops into WhatsApp, their own app, Facebook Marketplace, and Instagram with what they call kind of smart search. And I just sent out the article from Reuters. Again, Facebook is expanding its Shops feature into messaging app WhatsApp in several countries and to Facebook Marketplace in the US and into Instagram as well. And it's the future of social commerce. And Michelle knew that she wanted me to join that because she knew that was the announcements that we were looking for, a month or so ago when we did the live stream of the F8 event, which didn't mention these things. But now that they did, I'm almost glad that they didn't, because if I had seen Shiva jump on stage to make these announcements at F8, I would have, lost my mind. And so immediately following the live chat room with Mark Zuckerberg, I pinged Shiva on Facebook Messenger, as we're friends on Facebook. And I said, "Hey, Shiva, holy shit, I didn't know you're working at Facebook." And I brought Michelle into the chat. And I said, Michelle joins us every day at Tech News Around the World. Why don't you jump in? And I will try and ping him in right now, although he responded to say he's busy today. And that he has he's taking a whole week vacation starting tomorrow. But we will circle back after vacation because no doubt social commerce will continue to be a very interesting thing for many, many weeks to come. And I'm confident that he'll join us at some point to give us his own personal take on this whole development, which is truly interesting. And
I don't envy his email load when he comes back.
Yeah.
He's going to have so many of them. When we do a public
I think,
launch
well, yeah,
like
but at
that,
the
you
same
have
time, it's like it
all
finally
the,
launched and now he can take a vacation, maybe a long overdue vacation. And I told him he can come stay at my place here in Thailand, which he might do. But yeah, we will see. And more interestingly, he has a really interesting background. He was very senior at YouTube for a long time. And you've heard me mention that I was the first YouTube paid content creator. And he was essentially head of content at YouTube. And then he went over to Spotify for reasons that you could guess why Spotify would want the head of content from YouTube. Winky, winky, nudge, nudge. You can put two, you can connect those dots. And then he went to WeWork to be the chief product officer at WeWork. And then in the COVID period, WeWork kind of fumbled. And now he's doing head of commerce at Facebook. So it'll be, he's touched a lot of really interesting projects across a lot of the big players. And it'd be I'm really looking forward to him jumping in and we can do a quick little interview with him about social commerce through Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp. And what they rolled out is, as we've been saying for weeks and weeks now, WhatsApp has, you've got a little shop inside WhatsApp and they're connecting you with influencers. And Mark Zuckerberg showed how Instagram's going to work now is basically the products inside of your Instagrams are clickable. And when you click the item, the image recognition tries to do the best guess of that item. So if somebody's wearing some shoes, the image recognition will use image recognition to find those shoes and where they are being sold and provide them inside the app. So you'd never leave the influencer's page. And that way the influencer doesn't have to do any work at all to link to particular products. They get a commission for doing essentially nothing. And except for, enabling users to click, but everybody wins. The user stays in the app. The app loves that. The influencer gets some cash. And it gets very, very interesting indeed. And we read another headline in the previous meeting today, click on the title to see our schedule, that the big influencers in Asia now have agencies in the same way that Hollywood stars have agents in Hollywood, which Michael can tell you all about. United and CAA, these massive agencies. When you are a talented individual, you work with these big agencies who place you into movies and, commercials and, the Hollywood game. And now these e-commerce influencers are highly monetizable figures and can make a bunch of money. And so they're starting to work with agents, and these agents in Asia are now IPOing, was the headline today, because they are just printing money. Because here's why. It's not obvious, but it will be when it starts happening here in the very near future. Is now that influencers on social media apps can start monetizing, what happens is a bunch of really interesting things that are quite interesting and surprising. First is they don't just take photos and wait for you to click them and get their little commission on buying the shirt that they were wearing in the photo. Oh no. What they do is turn on a live Instagram video or Facebook video or TikTok video live, not just a static photo or just a little clip of a video. They're going to live stream for the minute they wake up till the minute they go to sleep. So they'll be live streaming for 12 hours uninterrupted, sharing endless products, because all they have to do is hold up something. They don't even need to own it. They could borrow it for the day. They could say, yeah, click on this, click on this, click on this. The app is telling you how to buy it. They themselves don't have the inventory as the influencer. It doesn't matter. That's approach number one, is they're just doing, it becomes, and yes, it's
we brought back the Home Shopping Network.
It's Home Shopping Network fully democratized, because Home Shopping Network, they were you couldn't be one of the people on stage. It was a very, locked scenario. But now anyone, and it becomes an absolutely internet-wide competition to see who can sell the most shit. That's what it becomes. And people who have big followings in these social media apps have a huge advantage going into this, especially people who have followings around particular niches like makeup or hair products or what have you, because that's what their audience is already expecting from them, and developed a bit of trust, especially people around diet products or weight loss products or sleeping products or whatever it is. And they're going to monetize their audience with products that they don't even have really any affiliation to, although they can, because that's the second stage, which is the influencer. After step one is they take a photo, they monetize the photo. That's peanuts. Okay. Step two is they start live streaming for 12 hours straight, showing endless products QVC style. Step three is they realize, wait a minute, why don't I partner with the warehouse that's making these products? And that's what happens, is the warehouse reaches out to the influencers and says, hey, now we see where these sales are coming from. It's your crazy ass jumping up and down for 12 hours on Instagram Live. Well, how about we connect the link button so that it doesn't go through this little shop. It comes directly to our factory. We'll make the shop. So it'll link directly from the influencer to their little shop, which is still the same little shop, but now it's a more direct link, and they'll do a separate little additional kickback on the side. And now you have these crazy influencers as the fronts for these big Chinese warehouses, the actual direct manufacturer, and all the middlemen all get cut out. And it's massive. It's truly massive. It's like, it's better than having Tom Cruise, shelling their stuff in a movie. It's like truly transformative. So much so that there's incredible shortage of warehouse space available, because they can't build the warehouses fast enough. And the net result of this is another headline that we read 6 hours ago is that it was in Europe, was it not, Cal, that there's a shortage. 300 million square feet of warehouse shortage.
About 300 million.
And why is that? Well, it's because the e-commerce boom is so big that they need an additional 300 million square feet of warehouses around Europe to meet the all current demand, which is exploding exponentially, like 800% a year. And there is an interesting side consequence to this, of course, which is the interesting fact that if people are starting to buy all of their stuff through e-commerce and social commerce, which believe me, they will. And by the way, it's going to be their new form of entertainment, which is why the Hollywood agents are now partnering with these influencers who are becoming a new form of entertainment. That's how entertaining these influencers become, the best of them. And the cake shop down the street starts doing its business in Instagram. because it can still reach the people in their neighborhood, but more importantly, it can reach anybody within, a couple hours drive to deliver those cakes. And it's going to help Aunt Betty's cake shop and Uncle Joe's flower shop and, Crazy Larry's shoe shop, because they put their little shop on there. The influencers are driving the traffic there, and Amazon does all the fulfillment. Not Amazon, sorry. Shopify, very notably, will handle all the fulfillment in the back end, and the autonomous vehicles will deliver all of the goods. And by the way, if you give me a few minutes, we'll get to the headline. As there is now every day, these new autonomous vehicles. We had a headline 6 hours ago today of a Houston-based vehicle partnership with FedEx, and you can see these vehicles. It's now becoming very clear this is going to be the vehicles that are going to get the adoption. These half-size little. It looks like what a 8-year-old would drive if you built a little van for an 8-year-old. Although very stylish and technological, and they don't need an 8-year-old to drive them. They drive themselves. 1 second, Frost. But as soon as I finish, the interesting thing is the reason that I realized since we met last, I realized this over just a few hours ago over lunch, is that these vehicles, autonomous vehicles, are working in this context because they have a sort of very limited grid of the city that they operate in. They're not operating on the entire world map. They only need to operate in this one zip code. And so that vehicle can be trained to operate in that zip code and know those streets and those corners and those stop signs and everything within that little geography, from the factory to all the houses in that delivery zone. And so, yeah, we are going to have this last mile delivery through these autonomous child-sized vans, which will alert you when they leave the factory that they will arrive in precisely 2 hours and 36 minutes, in the same way that Google Maps is incredibly accurate about your arrival time, or Uber is very accurate about your arrival time. This will tell you I'm going to arrive in 2 hours and 36 minutes based on my current route. You can say, I'm not going to be home. Try tomorrow. Okay, great. Win-win for everybody. Or I'll be there. And if you're there, you will get an SMS with a code of how to open and unlock the door to retrieve your item from the vehicle that's parked in front of your house or apartment. So it's all becoming a bit more clear. And of course, you might upgrade to get the drone delivery, in 10 minutes, for whatever. Go ahead, Frost.
Yeah, so I've been doing a little bit of reading around this in my free time, of course. And so when we look at these things as a group to invest in, or even if you're looking at the stock market and taking a small share in something, one of the important things that we want to look at is, okay, if something's coming out as a startup, one, projected sales, or if it already exists, sales; two, commercialization or endorsement from a sovereign or a major that's going to be looking at commercialization, right? So don't you think, in terms of the amount of electronic vehicles that are coming out and the number of these companies that are coming out, and whether it's small, large, autonomous, electric, vertical flight, autonomous drones, don't you think it's getting a little carried away? And in terms of that, how does one address this market? And the opinion that I'm now forming is that Tesla is going to end up becoming the Nokia of what happened to phones, because the major commercialization contracts are with other giants that are looking at not just one, two, but actually three or four different verticals of this, which, whether it's just electric cars, whether it's electric buses, electric trucks, they're also looking at autonomous driving, they're also looking at autonomous flight, they're looking at vertical flight, they're looking at autonomous drones, whereas Tesla is focusing on a couple of different verticals, but not all. And as far as I know, they don't have any major commercialization contracts. Plus, they don't have any major commercialization contracts with the stamp of a sovereign. Am I correct?
What do you mean, stamp of a sovereign? Like the approval to operate?
It's
No,
also like a
stamp of a sovereign.
sponsorship.
I mean, any major commercialization contract, like for example,
Didn't they have like a
would
Pepsi delivery for their truck division for like semi trucks or whatever? Like I don't know if that's the one with things, but if they're going to have one, to be in that division.
I mean, I'd say, for example, you get I don't know, the American. I don't know if they have I don't know how you'd qualify, but in England, for example, you'd have the transport authority coming out and saying, you know, all the original out and run Teslas.
We do it a little bit different here, where we do it at state level with things after, and then there's a little lobbying magic that goes in the backside, and then Biden will come out one day and he says, "Guess what? Hey, look, these Ford electric vehicles, they sure are great. Hey, look who we're going to buy for our new postal fleet upgrade, where you have to upgrade every single postal fleet for the entire thing." But it's going to they use government purchasing power normally on the military, or occasionally with some of the civilian side, but there aren't as many sectors do that. Normally works for GSA is the one that does those purchases.
Right.
So for us, my question to your question, which I think is useful to discuss, is like, my question is, why would Tesla not have the same disadvantage or advantage as anyone else in trying to get those contracts?
I haven't heard anything. Have you seen anything from any
Well, you
major
mean
suburbs?
action in terms of what they've done? I mean, maybe we just don't know about them. They're probably working on it. But I don't see them having a disadvantage on those. If anything, if they have a better product, right?
They don't. The autonomous is behind everyone else's.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? Chris, is that Chris down there?
Yeah. So it's a product issue,
so.
right? Not the fact that they don't have the connections or that.
So I mean, it's not just the product issue. I think it's a vertical issue. I don't think they have as many verticals that are being offered as a lot of the products that are in the market. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I might not be as informed as some of the other individuals and my peers on this forum. But I don't see as many verticals as most of the other guys have. I don't see as much. Forgive me for saying, I don't think I see as much innovation coming out of them, other than the batteries and the solar and all the stuff that Elon has always been screaming about. Whereas the new guys that are coming to the market, they've got all verticals for all different spaces. If they're doing trucks, they're doing autonomous, they're doing vertical flight, they're doing drones. I mean, even one of the smaller companies that you talk about, for example, I'm forgetting the name now, but I think you guys might. It was in some of the news articles that we tweeted out recently. There's autonomous vehicles, there's electric vehicles, they're doing drones. Tyler, was one of the news articles. I'm forgetting the name of the company, but we spoke about it, and I particularly read up on it. But they're doing all of that. They have the funding. The batteries, they were even talking about where the batteries could possibly be used to actually. The batteries had the ability to be solar. They had the ability to be completely electric, lithium ion, and many other variations of it. So from what I'm reading, I clearly don't see as much innovation coming out of them. I don't see as many verticals coming out of them. I don't see and sure, sales might be coming out of them, but even Stellantis, which was one of their biggest reasons for being profitable over many quarters, has left them and has partnered up with some other people. And in addition to that, you don't see commercialization, which is the most important. So you can have as many sales, but sales go up and down. But if you don't have proper commercialization partners, such as one of the examples that Chris gave, these big departments, these big states, etc., at some point you're going to lose out.
So you're talking about Tesla, just to be clear, right?
Yeah, Tesla, along with all the new guys that are coming, and there's too many of them. Plus, you've got giants, you've got GM, you've got some of the others. I mean, this is just a question that I brought up, and I thought there might be some better minds on the forum.
I actually have something on this. So they actually have signed contracts with sovereigns with stuff. It's just not as politically friendly. So they have signed actually with China, with like one of the main groups in China that has official state backing.
That's on the factory.
Well,
that's on the factory. That's not on commercialization of the vehicles running, for example, on routes. That's not on the commercialization of vehicles doing proper contracts in a city.
So it's my understanding that similar technology launched in China during the early days of the pandemic. I'm going to try to pull an article. So to your point, for us, I mean, I think that it's more incremental than not when we look at it from a broader global perspective. I'm going to try to pull something and then tweet it out. But I'm quite sure that autonomous delivery, I think they called them even robot delivery vehicles, were employed particularly in China when they want to knock down. The entire world stopped. If people can recall how long it took for deliveries or for orders to be delivered globally, because people did not leave their homes for 6 weeks at a time, and everything stopped, and they relied on these robot delivery vehicles in order to deliver food and other essentials.
But Faraz, can you simplify your question?
So what I'm saying is there's a lot of innovation going on, right? Okay, so I don't have the level of knowledge that some people on this stage would have in terms of, how the mechanics of a car work
That's
or how
fine.
electric vehicles operate, right?
What's
In simple business terms,
yes?
the way that one would look at things is there's innovation,
I, I,
there's
I
sales,
just need to hear the
and then
question
there's,
in the most simple way.
right. So the question is, there's too many of these electric vehicle
Okay.
companies. And do we really see Tesla outrunning them in the long run?
Okay.
Very simply.
Okay.
That's a
No.
simple question.
I can answer the question,
Go
Tyler.
ahead, Milos.
Let's go.
Yeah, so Tesla, why Tesla is the leader in the electrical vehicles? It's not because they were first, it's not because they are most aggressive. They are leader in the electrical vehicles because they have technologies. They're incorporated into those vehicles technologies which nobody else incorporated, including the main two technologies, which is battery. Battery is main component of the electrical vehicle, and including the computer, what I would call computer, but I mean computer with the software and everything else, with the data. So basically, Tesla is producing now already this year not electrical vehicles, but Tesla is producing digital electrical vehicles, and many others they want to produce. They are still not producing in the volume the still electrical vehicles with many, but not digital vehicles, but electrical vehicles.
Okay. So
So Tesla,
I have a question.
one more information. Tesla is leading technology-wise 5 to 10 years before everybody else.
So here's a question.
Yeah, Milos is right, and also don't forget Tesla owns the entire ecosystem. So from a technology and a manufacturing perspective, they're the people who are forging ahead and innovating. I mean, Faraz is right. There are a lot of new competitors coming to market, but let's not forget Nikola. That had a great looking truck as long as it was sort of moving downhill. I think we'll have to wait and see, who the effective competitors are. Certainly, if you look at Neo coming out of China, there's also Lucid now in the US. There are a lot of sort of late arrivals or new arrivals to the party, but I think Tesla will be there for the long term. I agree with Milos.
Yeah, this is John. I have a question for both Jonathan and Milos. So, given that the number one most profitable vehicle in the U.S. is the Ford F-150, and given that Ford has really put it out there that they're coming in strong with an electric F-150, is that going to be a significant challenge to the Cybertruck or not?
Prime example.
No, simple,
Sorry, Milos, go on.
simple, simple answer, not at all. So that Ford F-150 Lightning is not competition to the Cybertruck in any measurement. And by the another issue is that Ford is shooting themselves to the foot by announcing that they build now the electric truck, which is much better than their previous truck, combustion engine truck, but they are not producing it yet. That they will produce it the next year. They are cannibalizing their own business. So if the and they will not be able to produce those trucks in near future in volume because they will simply not have batteries.
So I can't speak to the battery piece, but I somewhat disagree slightly, Milos, with your point. I mean, GM and VW, I mean, they're investing, tens of billions into catching up with the likes of Tesla. And that momentum will, and also the support of vendors. So whether it's LG Chem or BYD, whoever's manufacturing the battery for them, they're copying the innovation that Tesla has delivered to the market, and they don't need to focus on that. So I think the big car manufacturers will catch up. I mean, I like the look, for example, of the VW ID4. If I was going to buy a car, I'd buy that over a Tesla.
I feel like
Yep.
people are forgetting one big thing here. There's a very big major factor here, and that is that Elon, this was his fucking end game in the first place. People seem to be forgetting that his whole goal was to force the entire automotive industry into electric vehicle adaptation in the first place.
Well, he open sourced all his
Electric
patents, right?
cars, electric cars, they were around decades before Tesla. If you guys remember that documentary, Who Killed the Electric Car? It's not that it's a new
Yep.
technology, it's that Elon was the
Yep.
first one who had the finances to say, fuck you guys, I'm doing what I'm going to do, and I'm changing the world this way, and I'm forcing you bastards to do it whether you want to or not. And that's exactly what he's doing now. He literally accelerated this entire industry single-handedly and said, well, either you're going to come after me or you're all going to die like the damn dodo. And he pulled that off. So it's not a question of
Absolutely
if
right.
he'll be, it's not a question of if Tesla will still be around. Of course they'll still be around. He's been doing this and fighting off the fucking bulldogs. He's got over a decade head start in dealing with the bulldogs and just defying the odds. And quite frankly, by the way, Ford F-150 Lightning looks like an awesome truck. And I'll tell you this much. I have a Cybertruck on pre-order, but the thing is, there's room for both. People it's not like these things have to be one or the other. They do not. And that's the
Uh,
beautiful part about this, is that they both need to exist and they're both going to exist. So
I
let's not
think that
let's not
Michael, you
forget
are
that.
right.
missing. I think
You
that
are
everybody's missing
absolutely
the
right.
point here. Really, if you want to think about it, Tesla is not made to be an electric car company. I'm kind of surprised that the discussion is going down this route. Just click on my profile, check who invited me to the app. He actually used to work for Tesla. The reason why Tesla has such a high stock valuation has nothing to do with electric cars. Elon Musk's endgame has not been to turn the car industry into a bunch of electric cars. It's been to turn the car industry into a bunch of autonomous driving vehicles, like Tyler started this segment out to be. So ultimately, they're going to face a lot of challenges from a lot of different car makers. The electric car market's going to get saturated. They probably won't remain the number one electric car out there. Maybe they will, but it really doesn't matter. Their whole goal is to be the first and most expansive autonomous driving software company out there. And they are decades, they are light years ahead of anybody else. And that's really the future of what they're trying to do. So I think that is maybe what we should focus on here.
Is Milos?
Well,
Yeah, you are right.
Remember,
that's a part
Justin.
of it. If you go back to
Guys,
that interview
one
that I
sec.
was talking about, Justin, he said that's exactly what he precisely said in that interview. He wanted to push this industry forward. He's doing the same thing with space. He's doing the same thing with autonomy. Like in that industry, he covers very specifically laid out this entire plan. So yeah, all of these different. That's always been his end game, is to accelerate all of this into a place that we have long been ignoring. I mean, look at our infrastructure. Tyler, you mentioned earlier the amount of money that the government is supposedly putting back into fixing bridges and roads and shit. We need to literally accelerate the entire automotive industry, and it does need to be running on autonomy, and that's a big, big, big part of his plan. So yeah, Justin's right on that end.
Me,
I
But
think
Mike,
there's more a point
Mike,
around ecosystem, because it's not just electric vehicles or autonomous cars. He's got to play in the energy sector. So you just saw today GM and Shell announce vehicle to grid and demand side management for storing excess electricity at night time in the state of Texas. So that was announced today. And Tesla has that on their own. They don't need Shell that bought Sonos, not Sonos. I forget the name of the German company that they bought, but they bought a German battery storage company. And I mean, GM needs a partner to do these things. Tesla doesn't. It doesn't even need a partner to connect these things anymore. So, if you look at Tesla and what they're doing, they're going around Europe buying up energy distribution rights. So, they already have their authority to be an energy generator in the UK, which allows them to store and distribute energy. So maybe, if we're looking for other
John,
opportunities they have the flexibility to drive into retail energy management.
Jonathan, I'll just say one final thing, and then maybe we can move on from this topic because I don't want to hog the room. People always lose their way. If you remember, he came in with Solar City. Look at what happened to Solar City. He came in with Tesla. He had to build in Solar City into Tesla to save Solar City. Now he's got SpaceX. He's got all this crypto stuff
He
running.
came in with PayPal though.
Fine, that's fine, brother. But hear this out for a second. Then he gets into crypto. The SEC keeps letting him go. Now you got Bezos against him in the space industry. There's a whole bunch of things the guy's into. People might come in with one intention, which is, to change the world or do whatever they want to. But he's clearly got his hands into so many different things. The guy might lose focus, and now he's got the world coming against him for electric vehicles. And forgive me for saying, he doesn't have the finances such as General Motors and some of the other players. I'll leave it at that. But it was just a question, and I wanted to get a general opinion from the room. I'm
Faraz,
done.
It sounds
Thank you.
like you're just
if
working
I
off a
may,
lot
I
of
think that
ifs because, I mean, we can never know what somebody's intention is just because time change, the climate changes. So, I mean, he would have to pivot in order to compete. So, I mean, it does make sense in order to ensure that any other future ideas or things he wants to invest in, he'll have to accrue the funds for that. So, I
Also, he's
mean,
not
it
doing this on his
happens.
own. Sorry, Ellie, I
Yeah,
thought you were done
exactly.
there.
Thank you,
Apologies.
Carl. No,
He's
no, no,
not.
no.
He's
I was
not
going to go with
doing
that, Carl.
this.
Thanks.
He's not doing this on his own. He has made a cult in every single one of these companies, where everybody there either believes in the dream down to their last dying breath, or they get out and burn out. And it's not healthy. It's not great for mental health. But God damn it, it works because that's why everybody's there. They're there for the dream. So
And he's the chief marketing officer, right? CMO.
exactly. Yeah, so he's not
I
just
think you
standing
guys
there.
have
He has
forgotten
his
the issues
army.
that he had with his employees when they all got fired and the massive social media campaigns that they wrote against him.
Yeah,
There's a
I
widely
absolutely.
mean,
held
every
image
company
where
has
he's
issues,
God.
though. I
Wait,
mean,
are
I'm
we
not
trying to
going to
short
fight him for
Tesla
that,
here?
though.
I'm not sure what
Yeah,
we're
that's what it sounds like. I mean,
like.
yeah, every company, every great person, I'm not saying he's a great person, but
No,
everybody
no,
has
guys.
issues. So, I mean,
Forgive
shit
me for saying
happens.
the guy has portrayed. He's lovely at marketing and he's lovely at campaigning himself as an amazing guy and this that etc. But forgive me for saying, a lot of the things that he does with the sorry, I have to mute myself. There's going to be a lot of noise behind me, but you're not getting the bigger picture. People don't, just because they display an image via PR doesn't mean that that's the person that they are.
Oh no,
I
no, no.
think we
He's
all
he's a
know
I
that.
want to
violent.
respond
He can be a
to
violent
Faraz's
Yeah.
question.
psychopath
He's an
in
asshole. What?
in
Hang
in
on.
house. Yeah,
He's
violent,
really
rude,
difficult to work for.
sexually
Yeah,
aggressive.
Guys,
yeah.
A lot of these
Everyone knows
people.
all these things
Milos,
about
is
him.
Yep.
there another car company that actually makes their own batteries in the way that Tesla does?
Nissan? Leaf?
Can I
Panasonic?
answer the question? No, there is no other company which is making batteries. Even Tesla doesn't make battery yet. Tesla will make battery. Tesla is building the first battery factory in Berlin and second um, in Texas. And Tesla is already operating pilot factory in Fremont, which this pilot factory would be like the 13th largest battery factory in the world. But that's only their pilot factory.
Milos, one more thing though, right? We haven't thought about it because when Tesla made its Model S, there was also assessments by this Michigan company that assesses cars, and they said that their processes are awful because they're not car manufacturer. The same thing can apply to their batteries. We have much better battery manufacturers out there, so all it takes is for them is just to innovate and just get their batteries out. They already have the infrastructure, so they could
No,
definitely outpace them. No.
guys,
no,
I think
not at all. Not at all. The those battery manufacturers, we went far away from the commercialization 30 years ago, 1991, by the Sony commercialized the lithium-ion battery. Uh, we had huge evolution from over the last 30 years toward a much cheaper battery from $8,000 to $137 per kilowatt hours, much better battery in many kind of the qualities, and we are able to produce it in much bigger scale. But we still have a way to go over the next 10 years at least in this lithium-ion battery. And all those batteries are first-generation battery. Tesla came with the second-generation lithium-ion battery right now, which they are commercializing this year. And that will be a huge jump in the you can call it second generation of lithium ion battery, which nobody has. Nobody in the world has it. And it's not because of only one issue. I can talk about that a lot. So basically, there are like 10 reasons why this battery is second generation lithium
Okay.
ion battery.
One other question. So there's
I
that. The fundamental kind of base key factors are who really leads in the battery domain, and Milos, you're saying as an expert in lithium that Tesla has a clear advantage there, right? So next topic is who has the real advantage in autonomous, and then again, there's recent headlines that can help us understand the answer to
I
this
can
because just yesterday was the announcement of the new supercomputer to train Google's algorithms for their camera autonomous driving system, right? The fifth largest supercomputer in the world, which I forget the name of it. They just announced it yesterday, right? And as you said, there's actually 3 similar computers, right, Milos?
Yes, I can answer this question very well because Andrei Karpathy, the guy who is leading their autonomous AI and robotic division, we can call it right now AI and robotics division. So this is fifth largest.
Fifth largest supercomputer. Yeah, supercomputer.
Fifth most powerful computer in the world, and it's not Dojo yet. They are still
Right.
building Dojo, and Dojo will be much better. Means that Dojo will be the number one computer
Got it.
in the
And,
world.
and let me try and make it easy for Grandma to understand here. So Dojo is going to be the training system, hence the name Dojo, for their algorithms for self-driving, and it's a very ambitious and a little bit risky bet because the other autonomous systems, which many people believe are currently more advanced because they enable better driving on roads in cities today. However, once Tesla finishes training their algorithms through this supercomputer Dojo system, it's possible that Tesla will vastly leapfrog over today's LiDAR-based autonomous driving systems. Does that sound about right, Milo?
Yes, but one small correction: all those considered leading autonomous driving systems, they are not leading autonomous driving systems because they are operating on the, like you would operating on the crunches with the help of the a little bit longer explanation. So basically, the short explanation is like that. Nobody has what Tesla has because Tesla is basing their autonomous driving system based on the vision, purely vision, and purely vision is much better if you have data. They have the data, 1,000 times more data
because they
than
have more
everybody
cars with
else.
more cameras on the road with more mileage. Yeah.
They have 10 million cars on the road right now, and they are collecting the data from 10 million cars. So they have billions of the miles of the videos of the data, and the second one has like the million miles. So they have billions, and the second one has like the millions. And the second one is operating on the radar and lidar. They removed even. They are so confident in their vision system that they removed the radar from the existing vehicles. They will have the announcement next month. They will have the autonomous vehicles day next month in July. So hopefully in July, Elon Musk announce it. So right now, I would summarize it like that. Right now, the Tesla is automobile, energy company, and AI company. That's today. But the Elon Musk is building Tesla to AI and robotics company, number one, number two, energy, and number three, automobile company. So Tesla in the future, it's AI and robotics. You need to add robotics to it. And the guy who is leading by this division, Andrei Karpathy, is from my town, from Slovakia. I was born in Slovakia,
There's one
in
other
Košice. He was born in Košice, Slovakia.
yes, one other
Hey,
interesting
Tyler.
thing that I think most people are not aware of is the gigapress. Milo, are you familiar with the gigapress from Italy? From Italy, which gives
Absolutely.
them an also kind of an extra advantage in their ability to make as was just announced in the past few days, the new Model S Plaid is simultaneously the fastest production car ever created and the safest car ever created. And that's really only possible because the GigaPress enables them to make cars not only 10 times faster, but in a single shell system, a unibody-like system like laptops, which is why
But
laptops are so safe when you
right.
drop them. And they're designing the cars in this. Yes, go ahead, Milos.
But, but
Okay.
one small correction: they are not using the Giga press for the
Okay.
Model S Plaid
Fair enough.
or for Model S. So, but they will maybe use it in the future because they are using GigaPress for the volume cars for Model Y and
And
Model 3.
essentially enables
So
them to make
there,
cars at a far faster pace than normal car manufacturers.
but most importantly, cheaper and more precise. So this technology is key technology. They tested it already. They have special alloy. They were able to develop it thanks to the team of the um, uh, material science team. The main guy, Charles Kunagam, or whatever is his name, he came from Apple. They hired him like 5 years ago, and he works for the both companies, for the SpaceX and for the Tesla. He's only one like the Elon Musk, which is working on the both companies. So he's material science. He leads material science team for the SpaceX, and he leads material science team for the Tesla. And they were able to come with a special alloy and a single casting machine. So they already incorporated it in Model Y in the back chassis of the car in the Fremont, but now they are building the whole factory in Berlin and Texas, which they will be back and front. They will say save on the one piece of the chassis which they are produced right now from hundreds of the welded and screwed from the hundreds of the parts. They will produce it in one piece, so they will save 300 robots in the back of the car, 300 robots in the front of the car. So they will be able to produce it much faster and much cheaper, the cars. So that's one of the technologies which I was talking to you, that the Tesla has many technologies. This is one of them. Battery is another one. And in the self-driving, in the AI robotics is the third one. And we can talk about a lot of other technologies like the motor, which is now it can go to one speed from 0 to 200 miles per hour, 20,000 RPMs, and
Okay.
1,000
So one
horsepower.
last final point, Milos, you might not know. Sam Teller was also Tesla, SpaceX, and Boring Company as well, in addition to Elon and the head of materials. So, but Sam just stepped down to join a VC firm of all things. But I wanted to go, Justin. You had an interesting headline that can start off a whole new other interesting conversation. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, I am. Before I got some work meetings here, but no, it's a really interesting headline because it's something that tech news around the world and us in politics and media 101 have been tracking. Tyler, you've been probably talking about this for a couple weeks now, and folks, it is the antitrust legislation that is moving its way through the House of Representatives in Congress. For everybody in the audience that's not from the US, a bill has to go from the House of Representatives, has to pass that, has to pass the Senate, and then it gets signed into law. Today, there are 5 different pieces of antitrust legislation. I'm not going to get into them. Just understand that what they do is they target different big tech platforms. They target Google, they target Apple, they target Facebook, and they ultimately make it easier for the government to go after these companies for anti-competitive behavior. So I'm trying to get the headline up here, but essentially the headline goes into the fact that these pieces of legislation in the United States, as everybody knows, were very divided politically. Democrats can't even agree with Democrats, Republicans can't even agree with Republicans, and it's very rare that both parties can agree on really anything and move it forward. But today there's a vote to move these bills out of committee, which is really important because it means that eventually these bills, once they get out of committee, they'll be voted on in the House of Representatives and likely pass. These bills have support from a liberal member from Rhode Island and conservative members. So The far most conservative members, Matt Gaetz from Florida and Ken Buck from Colorado, two members who, on an ideological spectrum, are about as far right as you can go, have teamed up with Democrats to support these bills. Now, the reason why this headline is really important is this room talks about lobbying and talks about the influence lobbying has and big tech has in lobbying. And I listen and I get all frustrated and I get upset because I think that people ultimately kind of blow it out of proportion, that lobbyists have all of this influence and former policymakers like myself or the current ones kind of don't have much agency. But this headline, folks, kind of goes to show, unfortunately, the influence that lobbyists can have on politics and specifically on the Republican Party. And I have to say that you folks here are right or justified with this headline. So basically, you have, like I said, far right Republicans, moderate Democrats, maybe progressive Democrats, all agreeing on a way forward for these pieces of legislation. However, the lobbyists for big tech have now gotten to the Republican leadership in the House of Representatives. And this is not a both sides issue, right? This is specifically a Republican issue in that there is a lobbyist that is going around Capitol Hill whose name is Jeff Miller. And I'm sure Tyler will tweet this out from Tech News Around the World's Twitter account, TNATW. But he is going around Capitol Hill and he is leaving threatening voicemails, threatening text messages to Republicans. And the reason why this is so important is because you have unnamed Republicans saying that they do not understand if whether they cross this lobbyist and support legislation that will that will be antitrust legislation against big tech, whether this is considered going against Kevin McCarthy's wishes. And the reason why that is important is in Washington, D.C., there are two ways that you can move up and become more powerful. One is raise a shitload of money, because if you raise money, then you can give it to other people, and not for their personal pockets, but you help them get reelected. And the other way is be friendly with leadership. So Kevin McCarthy is the most senior member for the Republicans in the House. And he has this guy that is considered his closest advisor that goes on trips with him